Yes, everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm Simpiwe Mieza, and you're tuning into the Thoughts channel where I introspect thoughts. Right now, in particular, I'm focused on the thoughts that I wrote on my blog page. So, I'm making a series right now, in the process of making a series of reading those thoughts back to myself. I wrote them about 2 years back. So, it will be as though I'm hearing these things for the first time, as you will be. So, yeah, join me along as we read. Today, we're reading Words Are Just Sound. Words are just sounds if said without intention. Words are just sounds if you say it without intentions. Okay, let's get into it. My Tongue, that's the subtitle. Living in a country with 11 official languages forces one to adapt to other ethnicities' vernacular. The tongue becomes a sword when you realize South Africans also have an array of languages to slander you with, something I certainly have both been victim and perpetrator of, okay? This diverse manner of communication is a luxury everyone has. A humbling lesson I learned when a foreign friend of mine was offended by what as South Africans used to greet each other. Reading intentions, that's the next part of the section. We live in a world where words are open to the listener's interpretation. This unreliable basis of communication shifts the listener's understanding from the reading intention behind the words to reading words as they see fit. Let me read that again. This unreliable basis of communication shifts the listener's understanding from reading the intention behind the words to reading the words as though they see fit, okay? When words are as malleable as the times they're born in, our only hope for raising our mutual understanding is intimating how words are said, not just what they are. So reading the intention behind the words through bodily observation and so on and so forth. Your ears, that's the next part of the section. We have become so sensitive to hearing words that may offend us, but our capacity to sense the intention behind the words has different. We need to be conscious of other senses the words you hear invoke. Okay, you need to be conscious of the senses that the words you hear invoke. Sometimes that's your sense of touch. Maybe I tell you something and you feel goosebumps. Sometimes that's your sense of smell. Maybe I tell you something and you remember a smell that you've had in your past. So I wrote here that you need to be sensitive. You need to be conscious of what these senses are. When there's a rewarding prospect from those seductive texts or slur from that particular race, it's easy to dismiss the intentions behind those words. That's true. Once you're aware of these words, internalize what you hear. Okay, we often don't realize that intentions are rooted deeper than meaning. This is why it's flawed to interpret words. Oh my bad, there's a pop-up here. Let me carry on reading. Let me read that again. Once you're aware of the words that you internalize. Let's go again. Once you're aware of the words, internalize what you hear, okay? We often don't realize that the intentions are rooted deeper than meaning. This is why it's flawed to interpret words in your own manner. The words use meaning. Analyze how the person intends to affect you with their words. So go deeper than what you're hearing. Think about, what is this person's intention when saying this to me? Okay. I have my bottle of water today. I'm trying to drink 2 liters per day, just to stay hydrated. Yeah. So please excuse that segment. I won't cut it out, but yeah. Let's carry on reading. Finally, act what you preach. In order to comprehend others, you need to be a comprehensive person. When your judgment is clouded by vague beliefs, your words are projected into the world in a manner that lacks clarity behind intention. Introspection. The angel of death sits on every word. It's quintessential to be an efficient communicator in these days. Take a moment to dissect the intricacies of the last words you heard, which offended you or caused an invocation inside of you. Damn. Let me take a moment and think about that, and I'll share what my introspective process is like. So I said the angel of death sits on every word. What does that mean? The angel of death sits on every word. So you need to be careful of your words. That's essentially what I'm implying. And you need to be so careful that you understand the significance of your words, which is a difficult thing to be aware of because words are said on a constant basis, okay? So that's the first part. You need to be careful and think about what you hear, or say rather. And then you need to be efficient communicator. Okay, we've discussed how you go about doing that. Firstly, you look at the intentions behind what the person is trying to say to you, and you deeply analyze that, not just what you're hearing, but how is this making me feel at the same time. Eventually, you learn to do this simultaneously in an instant, okay? And then I should be taking a moment to dissect the last words that I heard, which offended me. And I think that's a comment that I had on one of my art pieces recently. It offended me because I didn't expect it from that person. So that disappointment of expectation is what caused the frustration. That's a bar. The disappointment of the expectation is what caused the frustration. And more specifically, I was disappointed because that person should be a person that's building to me, or that is what my expectation is. So I'm analyzing these intricacies and I'm realizing maybe I was flawed in being the one with an expectation towards someone. Maybe I shouldn't have that expectation towards people and see them for who they are, you know? And I think that's a proper place to end the introspection, understanding that expectations and the real world are two different things, two different realities. So we should be able to distinguish between the two. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it off there. I hope you're enjoying. If you are, I see some of you are liking the videos. I'd love to hear your comments on these types of videos. I changed the setting today. I wonder if the lighting is proper. Let me know. Appreciate your time for watching. Until next time. Yeah.